like it.
That's pretty
He
good.
is the starting quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Mike Tomlin making that announcement yesterday. Wilson beating out Justin Fields despite being limited by a calf early in training camp. Here was the coach on the factors that went into this decision.
It was a difficult decision, but not difficult in a negative way, to be quite honest with you. The decision was difficult because of what they're capable of doing. Obviously, Russ's resume is a unique one in terms of length and success, and that tends to play a factor in the decision-making, but not from a decision-making perspective. It's just, fruit of his labor. He's seen a lot and done a lot, and I think it was reflected in the way he played and conducted himself.
All right, so let's dive into this thing here. Kmart, I start with you, my insider extraordinaire. If one were to frame this in the following way, which is how I view it, the injury to Russell Wilson at the beginning of camp gave Justin Fields every opportunity to take this job. He failed to do it. Would that be an accurate way to describe the situation?
The plan all along, Mike Tomlin yesterday didn't say anything we didn't already know. The plan was that he had pole position, and the expectation was that he would be the week 1 starter. Justin Fields had an opportunity to make it far more difficult of a conversation, but I think it's always looked easier to go from the vet to the kid, right? But when I hear Tomlin talk about Justin Fields and this decision, yeah, the competition in Pittsburgh may be over right now, but that does not mean that we are not going to see Justin Fields on the field, and that does not mean that Justin Fields will not be the starter at some point this season.
The question is, at what point? You can use whatever expression you like. How thin is the ice underneath
his
Russell
feet.
Wilson? Let me give you a different statement here. I'll make another one for you here. People sometimes will use this, the term leash. How much leash does he have? That sort of thing. If I said to you that Russell Wilson's job security as the starting quarterback in Pittsburgh extends roughly to halftime of week 1, how would you feel about that statement?
That might be a little bit too spicy, but not far beyond that.
What do you think?
Because I look at it as you look at seasons, you break into quarters, right? First 4 quarters, first 4 games. When you're playing the AFC North, the toughest division in football, you can't afford to fall behind. Those first 2 games, they're on the road.
Yep.
At the Falcons, at Denver. Could you imagine if Pittsburgh starts 0-2, Russell Wilson doesn't play well? You know what's going to be going on in Pittsburgh?
Yep.
They're going to be calling for Justin Fields to get on the field.
Yep.
Okay, so there's not going to be much leash for Russell Wilson. You heard Mike Tomlin talk about, basically, it was Russell Wilson's resume throughout his whole career that gave him favor as far as the starting job is concerned. But once we get out there on the field, you got to go out there and prove it. And if you don't do that, Justin Fields is going to be sitting right there squarely, waiting in the wings.
And we had that schedule up there, and if we can put it back, or maybe the other full screen that we have, Matt, today, which is 8:33, because the Steelers need to bank wins early. They do not have time for fooling around. They have the 3rd easiest schedule. And, of course, these things are fungible. We all understand that. This is based upon last year's records. So things are going to break differently. They always do. But I think it is reasonable to say that through the first 10 weeks of the season, in fact, it is an accurate statement, that they have the 3rd easiest schedule in the NFL. From week 11 on, they have the hardest schedule in the NFL. They play all 6 of their division games, plus they're at Philadelphia, and they play Kansas City. So, Harry, I put the same question to you. If you're Mike Tomlin, you've made your decision, but how long? If this thing doesn't start well, look, God bless him. Let's all hope Russell Wilson plays great, and this isn't even a topic of conversation. But if you're watching and we're struggling a little bit, Harry, how patient are you willing to be?
I think I agree with Woody. You look at those first 4 games, and if you're looking at that schedule, you're saying to yourself, if you're Mike Tomlin, these are games that we should be able to win, going against the Falcons, the Colts, the Chargers, and also the Denver Broncos. If things aren't looking right in those first 4 games, you can't waste time. You got to go to the younger player, Justin Fields. But I would also tell you this, Greeny. I'm disappointed at the fact that Justin Fields didn't win this job when he had the clear-cut opportunity to do so. You got to take advantage of these ops when they come your way. So for now, for Justin Fields, when you move forward, when you get an opportunity again, make it hard for the coach to take you out of the game. Make him want to play you more and more. And I do believe at some point he will be the starter of this football team this season. We just don't know exactly when that's going to be.
So the interesting thing is we all kind of feel the same, which is, yeah, we're going to see Justin Fields at some point. Russell Wilson, when you talk about how many games he'll start, what is the leeway that he has, to me, I think relationships. It literally is like I'm sitting at home and I'm looking at Harry and I'm like, okay, he's got me upset one too many times. If he says one more thing, his bags are packed and he's out the door. Like, I think it's that sort of situation based on the fact that I've watched this team for years, have a great defense, have TJ Watt, have Minka, all these guys, and offensively, that has been the thing that has held them back. And yet still, the Steelers, they are always sneaking into the playoffs or just missing the playoffs with bad quarterback play over the last couple of years. Now imagine if Russell can be better than what he was last year. Imagine if we can get to a Justin Fields. This, to me, is a playoff team, and this is a franchise, this is a fan base that will not watch more terrible quarterback play. Their first 2 games are on the road, but once they play at home, Russell, I think after week 4, like how he plays in week 4 will determine he may not play against Dallas in week 5.
D. Wood, I will say to you the following as you take a nice, healthy sip right there. I will quote the great philosopher Mike Tannenbaum, who sitting in that seat yesterday said, if Mike Tomlin gets this team into the playoffs this year with that competition that he's dealing with, put him in the Hall of Fame at the bye week. All right? I mean, we got Joe Burrow, we got Lamar Jackson, we got a Cleveland team that feels loaded, we got this group. I understand it. Is the quarterback room better than it was a year ago? Yes. Much better.
Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah.
Was the whole league clamoring for Russell Wilson? Did Justin Fields get traded for a 6th-round pick?
Greeny?
Yes.
Were we not sitting here in the offseason saying, good job, Pittsburgh? Good job, because they could not go into the season with Kenny Pickett, Mason Rudolph, and Mitchell Trubisky. Good job. And now, so I'm not going to backtrack. Last year, they were 5-1 in the division. Granted, I hear you. Joe Burrow was hurt. Relax. Before that, they were 3-3 in the division. The AFC North is the toughest division in the NFL. Argue with your mama. It is the toughest division, and they always play the Browns. They always play the Browns, Ravens, and Bengals tough. So I don't look at them and think, oh, this is not a team that can get to the playoffs. I'm sorry.
I don't see the Steelers getting in the playoffs. I don't. I think they have the worst quarterback situation in the division. And I know Deshaun Watson, we don't know what version of Deshaun Watson we're getting. But I've always said, if you got 2 quarterbacks, you have none. And right now, when I look at the Pittsburgh Steelers, they're hoping and praying on a star that Russell Wilson is just adequate at the quarterback position over what they've had, the past couple years.
And final on this, and we'll get into it a little bit more later, but just I think for a little taste of it, Harry, you were actually doing their opening game in Atlanta on the radio with Steve Levy. How much of Justin Fields do you expect to see in that game? Mike Tomlin suggested yesterday that, they better be ready to see some of Justin in week 1, despite the fact that Russell is the starter. How much of him do you expect to see right out of the chute in week 1?
I think we should see a good bit of him. It'll be a disservice to the offense if you don't put him out there, especially a player of his caliber. And I will go back to, Taysom Hill with the New Orleans Saints. That's a guy that Arthur Smith had, who's now the offensive coordinator for the Pittsburgh Steelers. When he was the head coach for the Atlanta Falcons, that's something that he had to deal with. And that was a difficult task to be able to, prepare for. You have a guy that can really change the dynamics of the game. You talk about short yardage situation in the tight red zone. You can line them up in the backfield, do a double pass. There's a lot of gadget things that you could do with Justin Fields. And it also gives Raheem Morris, the head coach for the Atlanta Falcons, one more thing to have to prepare for while they're getting ready for this game as well.
So I think that is something to watch. What are you laughing about?
It would literally be coaching malpractice if Mike Tomlin didn't use Justin Fields week 1. I mean, you can't have one of your best athletes on your team dressing and don't use him. Like, you got to put him out there.
Wait, hold on, Bishop.
Whoa.
So you think Justin Fields is good, right? When we talk about the quarterback situation?
I think he's a great athlete. He's a great athlete. And you got to utilize great athletes to give yourself a chance to win.
Ready on that one. But we go from one of these storied franchises to another. The Cowboys making money moves. On Monday, we saw it. CeeDee Lamb ending his holdout. 4 years, $136 million was the extension, making him the second highest paid non-quarterback in NFL history. Then, yesterday, Dallas signing Dalvin Cook to the practice squad. The 29-year-old spent last season with the Jets and the Ravens after making 4 straight Pro Bowls with Minnesota. And then, of course, there is the specter of Dak Prescott's contract looming over everything. He's in his final year, hits true free agency in March. And yesterday, Jerry Jones was asked about the quarterback. He had a lot to say.
Well, you could easily say, if you hadn't seen it by now, you haven't seen it. Dak's situation right now, for me, from my mirror, has more to do with our situation than it does with the merits of Dak Prescott being quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys. I've quit a long time ago getting bent out of shape about having anybody under contract or not. And there's all kinds of other things other than a contract that could change the outcome of him being under contract. Injury, level of play. So you can't just pick that and say, that should give you a better feeling about our team or me a better feeling about it. The whole thing has a lot of moving parts. Now, I can live with that. Everything you do, almost, there's risk involved. That's the nature of the game. Sometimes it's worked out really well. Sometimes taking those risks will bite you.
Anyone? Does anyone have any idea?
Sometimes those risks will bite you. Here's my question.
Yeah.
Jerry believes in his heart that Dak will be back, right? Like, I think he's negotiating from a place of like, yeah, I'm hopeful, I'm confident. My thing is, what owner is willing to risk losing his franchise guy? Like, risk, I think we are risk averse in football. If we have a franchise guy, our star players, we don't want to even open the door a smidge for them to walk out. And I know the old saying, it's if you love something, set it free. If it comes back, it's yours. Yeah, beautiful, right? That sounds like great. Not in football. Not in football. You do not risk that. I don't understand this.
Here's what he's counting on. He's counting on the fact that there has never been, and he is hoping will never be, anything more valuable than being a former quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys. No one ever leaves there. And if you look at what happens to them, Roger Staubach is a billionaire. Troy Aikman and Tony Romo are the stars of 2 of the 4 big, they're 2 of the 4 top analysts in all of the sport. And Dak Prescott figures to then follow in those footsteps. He has a long and storied career. I mean, Romo didn't even win, candidly didn't win almost anything in Dallas, and yet is still, we all saw how and see how it has gone from there. So that's what he's counting on. He's counting on the fact that nobody ever leaves there.
Oof.
Greeny.
Yeah.
How many of those guys had the leverage that Dak Prescott has?
No one has ever had the leverage.
No one has ever had it. And here, my thing is this, like, what incentive does Dak Prescott have to sign a contract right now? He has none. He has none. Literally, this is unprecedented. The fact that Dak Prescott is literally months away from being an unrestricted free agent where all these things, listen, we're in a market. There's not that many good quarterbacks in the National Football League. And you mean to tell me a guy in Dak Prescott who's who's one of the top 10 best quarterbacks that we have in the game is going to be on the open market for anybody to bid on? I mean, it's hard for me to wrap my mind around.
Right.
And I do not expect it. Once we get to playing games, I don't expect any type of contract negotiation to go on. Like, it's going to be all about football at that point.
No, it shouldn't. But Greeny's point is an important one, which is you are hoping that you're going to tap dance on that sentimentality, that history, those years together, those 8 years of like, and then also the future, what it means. That's what Jerry has. I don't know.
Where has it got Dak? It's gotten him to be a very rich man, but when we talk about the legacy of Dak Prescott, where has that gotten him in Dallas?
Listen, let me tell you, if I was Todd France, he's not picking up a pen. I'm not picking up my phone. I will talk to you later when I talk to all these other teams. However, Dak Prescott may see Aikman, may feel like this is home, this is where I want to be, and that is what Jerry will actually hope for.
I'm going to save the Stephen A. because you have to hear what Stephen A. said about all of this, and I don't have time for the appropriate reaction to it in this moment, and we will get to it. But Harry, I will throw that thought to you. I think what Jerry Jones is counting on is the fact that if indeed, when this season comes to an end, let's just live in a world where he doesn't get a deal done before the year, which feels unlikely, that if all the different teams come in and they're all offering him roughly the same thing, that Dak will choose to stay there because there is value in the star. There are no state taxes in Texas. All those things. He's counting on the fact that if he wants to keep Dak one way or another, he will be able to. That's what he's depending on, in my view, Harry.
Yeah, and Jerry's delusional, and every time he talks, I make sure I have Excedrin or goody powder around me because I get a damn headache because I don't understand half of what he's even talking about most of the time. But I would say this. What we've seen, and I'm going to use Deshaun Watson and the Cleveland Browns as an example. You're going to have a team out there that's desperate. Desperate for what? A quarterback that's needed in the National Football League. So when I look at the Giants, when I look at the Raiders, when I look at potentially the New Orleans Saints, all it takes is one team to give Dak Prescott everything that he's asking for him to be gone. So Jerry can play that game if he wants to, but he better go back to that preseason game where Trey Lance threw 5 interceptions and realize that he has a franchise quarterback, and after this season, give the man what he wants.